Hello, this is Bill Hargin. I've done business both as a presenter and as a technology evangelist in 30 different countries, making up to 10 trips to many of these countries. My articles, seminars, and training workshops have been translated into 12 different languages. This short presentation highlights my experience and lessons learned across over 100 some international business trips spread across the last 15 years. Each principle on this slide is really the tip of a bigger iceberg. I could easily spend an hour just on covering the principles on this slide. The first two principles tie to really return on investment, getting the most out of your international trip. My rule of thumb is it costs about 5K a week US dollars to travel abroad, usually a little bit more than that, but 5K is a good rule of thumb. And you really need to prove your sales and marketing locally, in my case in the US, before taking it overseas where it's much more costly to experiment. Obviously, there's a big difference between doing business across town and doing business in Scandinavia or Europe or somewhere in Asia. So you need to scale your trip preparation to the cost of the trip. The third principle here is to learn the language a little bit and some of the unique business practices for each market. I've spent a lot of flights where I've been studying the culture where I'm going. It's kind of interesting to study their history. Maybe on the plane learn some simple phrases like hello, goodbye, please, thank you, or do you speak English? Not real tough to do, and it's always appreciated in the market when you visit customers. Number 4, intercepting jet lag. What I've found really through trial and error is that I can sync my body clock up to any local time zone the same day that I arrive, and that applies to going east or going west. Much easier than in the past or some of my initial trips when I would lose at least a day, if not 2 days, of productivity just due to jet lag. That's actually been eliminated, and I've documented on this page how I do that. The fifth point on this slide is persistent presence and follow through. My rule of thumb is if it's worth making one business trip to another country or another market, then it's also worth planning another trip a month or 2 months or 3 months later. If that second trip isn't worth it financially, the first trip probably isn't worth it either, and you should probably pass on making the trip. Regarding the third principle here, every time I go to a market, even if I've been there 3 or 4 or 5 times, I study things like how they like to be presented to, or a little bit about their culture. Think about Japan, for example. In the US, a lot of times we'll start out a presentation with a nice little story or some humor or an anecdote on the front of a presentation. That's actually going to get you some blank stares if you do that in Japan. And the reason is they like you to keep it simple and get to the bottom line quickly. Tell them what you're going to say it, and back it up with facts and research, and then tell them what you said. Their market, their style is unique. Same with Finland and Sweden. They have their own style. Denmark, Norway, etc. Germany has a slightly different style, and the Mediterranean countries are a little bit different as well. Each culture needs to be understood, and that'll help you relate to the local market. I used the principles on the previous slide. I'm not going to read this one. You can hit pause and read it yourself if you like, but this is a comment from our country manager in Israel for Mentor Graphics, and I used the principles on the previous slide to get the results shown on this slide. Same with slide 4. Every principle in slide 2 was being used here. And in addition to that, I created some communication processes for scheduling and communication with our engineering team that helped me to turn around $1 million a year customer that we were in the process of losing. And again, using the principles on slide 2, as well as some new processes in R&D, we were able to turn things around. Thanks for listening.